Hello everybody, welcome back. It has been a while. On this video I'm going to just try and paint a whole landscape, especially clouds, using acrylic paint. You're noticing the colors that I'm using, even the prices on some of those. These are very old tubes of paint. I think easily over 6 years old or 7, something like that. In this next portion, I'm going to be speeding up the video, so don't think that I'm painting really that quickly. I'm just speeding it up. Sometimes I go online and I like to look at pictures or save pictures for later that whose colors I really like. Maybe I will like the mood, the vibe, the way that the colors on a picture will make me feel or remind me of. Maybe I only like the textures that I see on the picture. They can be colors the colors or the textures that I find in nature or on a picture that somebody edited a little bit. And so I decided on kind of copying one of those pictures that I just saved for later. I'm going to show you the picture and how I'm going to kind of change the colors a little bit. I'm going to limit my color palette to about 3 colors. They are titanium white, cadmium red, and ultramarine blue. The movements that I'm going to be using for the clouds are just wispy, round, curvy movements. I'm going to be painting very lightly with a lot of white. At the beginning I'm using a lot of white with just a hint, just a tiny little bit of red to get that pink color going. And I'm going to be painting not just on the front, but also on the sides of the canvas. That's something that I really like to do. It sort of makes me think that the painting will be continuing on the sides, as opposed to if it just ended and it had a white empty spot right there on the sides, tops and bottoms. Like the painting would end abruptly there. It's like it brings way more attention to what is not there on the sides. Now going back to the clouds, notice how the brush strokes, I'm using a really broad brush, let's use a brush, a brush, but I'm using it round. And I keep going until I'm running low on paint. I'm trying to use as much of it as I can, and until that paintbrush gets kind of dry. Once it gets a little bit dry, I can either add a bit more water or more white. Or in this case, I grabbed a bit more of that reddish, pinkish paint just to add more difference. And you'll notice there's a difference between the light pink now and the darker that is on the front. You want that with clouds. It's going to make it look like there are some clouds in the back, there are some on the front, and they all have different volumes, different colors, and they're doing different things. They are separate from each other. So you see me doing that side by side with the brush, and I don't think I'm that convinced by that movement. I think I wanted to do like a little Bob Ross kind of movement where you make those lines disappear into nothingness, but I swear I'm going back there to fix those lines because that movement didn't really convince me. But here's the thing about any painting that you're trying to do, especially with clouds, the only way that you're going to learn to do it is by observing how other people do it, and by then trying it out yourself. It's just something that is going to happen. You will have to take that risk. You will have to experiment a little bit, and then do not stop once you start going, especially with acrylic paint. Acrylic paint will dry out very quickly. You have to work really fast, especially with the kind of paint that I'm using because it's so old. That ultramarine blue actually looks like food. It's just really weird looking right now. It's very solid. The clouds will be using that white and red, and the mountains, part of the ground mostly, are going to be using that ultramarine blue with either red or white. That's my strategy, just mixing those three colors, and we'll see what happens. Again, I'm not sketching this out with pencil, and I think that the reason why it's going to end up looking pretty good is because I didn't sketch it out. If you are barely starting, or if you're a beginner level, you might have to sketch it out first, or look more often at that picture that you are using for reference. And if you are more advanced than I am, then you might not need any of that. Maybe you can do this from memory by now. Now, personally, I think that the best way to do it, the ideal way to do it, would be to sit outdoors and just paint directly from what you would see, what you would find in nature. But that comes with bugs bugging you, the wind blowing on your face and on the canvas, throwing your canvas around, drying out your paint. So it comes with a lot of problems. Also, you would have to work really fast because the sun is always moving around, and the lights, the shadows, the colors that you would be looking at would be changing constantly. So it would be very important that you work really fast, or at least throughout several days at the same time, so that you could have the same shadow be on the same spot all the time, long enough for you to paint it. You're going to notice on these mountains I'm doing a different movement. It's like an accidental straightish movement of the paintbrush to resemble rocks. It's the mountains that I'm trying to paint are supposed to be rocky. They're not going to be your regular triangular mountains. So I'm moving it kind of like at different and intermittent movements. That's basically it. And then it sort of blends into the ground. It finishes off over there. That's where it ends. Speaking of mountains, in the country of Germany there might not be that many, which is where my friend that is playing the guitar for this video is from. If you like the music, give this video a thumbs up and say hi to my friend Toby. He's the one playing the guitar. Let him know that you like his music. I wanted kind of enjoyable, cheerful, acoustic music for this video, and that's why I asked him if I could borrow his music. He said that he was going to check out this video to see how it would turn out. So write a comment, something nice, say something nice, guys. Mein Freund Tobi spricht Englisch und Deutsch und ein bisschen Spanish, right? So he's able to speak not just German, but also a little bit of Spanish and English, so leave a comment below. Now, going back to these mountains, I think I'm still figuring out the shape that I want them to have. I want to keep the shape that I have at the edges, at the tops, but now I want to change the texture that I ended up with on the front. That's what I'm working on right now. I think I'm trying to think about it, to see how I can experiment and mix colors to change the front of it. And in this case, you just move on. Move on to another thing. The answer might come to you later. You can always revisit what you're not so convinced with at the moment. Leave it for now, skip it, maybe go back to it later. Because again, you're working with acrylics and all of that paint is going to dry out pretty quickly. It's important that you lay down your first layers at least. And meanwhile, the top of the painting is drying. And I'm leaving it alone for now, and I can always go back to it and add more layers to it. Right now I'm using a different movement with the brush. I'm going to be thinking about maybe grass. That's what I'm doing right now. Just keep going in the same direction so that it's grass. I'm not really thinking so much about the colors, I'm thinking more about that texture, because I can always put more color on top of it and change the color, but that texture will always show through, and I like that. I want that to keep showing through, no matter the color that would be on top. And I know that the sky is not always these colors, the clouds are not always like this, mountains in real life are not really blue, but I wanted to limit myself to using these three colors. And if I don't like the way that the colors ended up in the end, I can always paint on top of all this with oil paint. That's another thing that I like to do. I like to put a first layer. First you have your layer of gesso, which is not even paint, but it helps in protecting that fabric, that canvas from the paint, separating it. And then you put that first layer of acrylic, and then on top of it, once it's dry, of course, you can always do a painting, a whole other painting, or do the same thing on top of it with oil paint. But again, it all has to be dry, and just stick around and see if you like your acrylic painting first. That's what I'm doing. I'm going back to the clouds right now. I'm adding more details. I will tell you what I'm not gonna do. I'm not going to stop and then just give up on this painting just because something didn't work out. I'm going to continue until it's finished. Once the painting is finished, then okay, fine, I might assess whether I like it or not. Right now I'm adding a darker pink, a darker red at the bottom. According to the photo, I think that's where I want there to be more definition. I want there to be, that's where the shadows on those clouds are going to be. I don't know if I'm so sure about the darkness of this cloud that I'm painting right now. I'm not so sure, but I'm going to stick with it for a little bit. Maybe I can blend it in a little bit more. And you know what? Come to think of it, I think that was one of the best surprises or best moments of every time I would watch a Bob Ross tutorial on how to paint, because I think I would see how he would make a mistake and he would say, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that," and he made a mistake, and I would think, "You ruined it, Bob Ross. You did it this time. Wow, like you messed that up. It doesn't look like what you said it would look like." And then he would manage to turn it into a happy mistake, and he would save the painting. He would do it every single time. I loved doing that. I loved watching that moment happening, because it looked like it was a big mistake that you could never come back from. You could never fix that. And then he would. And everything would go back to, being wonderful and amazing and surprising. It was a really, really good experience. So I like being able to do that. And again, the only way that you're going to be able to do that is by actually making those mistakes and then just trying out different things. If it doesn't work out this time, it might work out the next time. Just try it. But you're gonna have to be very, very brave. Right now, I think that some of the clouds are looking really good. You will even notice that at the bottom, way at the bottom of the clouds, they have that bright pinkish red. And then I left a space between that so that I could have my darkest blue, the darkest shade of the clouds. That's another thing that I like to do. Don't have the shadows touching the bottom of any shape. Just leave a tiny gap between the bottom of that shape that will be lighter than the actual shadow. I think I'm going back to the corners just to touch it up a little bit. I like to darken the corners a bit just to bring more attention to the center. So darkening the corners is going to bring your eyes more towards the center. just make it a bit more interesting, because there will be more light. There will be more interesting things happening in the center. So right now I'm just going to be adding a couple of accents or sections that are going to pop on those, out of those clouds with red. I'm doing that with red, pure red. I'm not going to blend it in that much. And I have to be very careful with what I'm doing, because I wouldn't want it to look like the clouds are on fire, or maybe it's about to, like, I don't want it to look like anything dangerous. So I'm just going to be very, very deliberate with every movement. I'm not going to fill it up with a bunch of that, a bunch of red. And then right after this, I'm going to just add my signature, let it dry, step away from it, think about the things that I really liked, that I really enjoyed, and possibly things that I would change if I had to make this painting again, or if I had to do this again, or do it differently for a future painting. It was really good to see you guys again. Thanks for watching. Take care. I will see you next time. Bye bye.